Hello and welcome to the Greater Manchester Engineering Challenge Lesson 2. Welcome back. I'm DrChips and I'm really excited to be running this lesson today with you because we've got lots of interesting tasks coming up and a great interview with a civil engineer who I caught up with earlier. So let's start today's lesson by just revisiting what we did last time, because in the lesson 1 last time we started by using a fantastic tool, Google Earth, not Google Earth, to look at our local area and not just look quickly but really look and see what is there. Because if you remember, we spoke to some geospatial engineers and civil engineers and started to understand what those people do in those roles, how they have to look very closely at a community, at a space, before they even start to think about designing or creating new buildings or new projects in that space. And today we're going to look at the idea of sustainable development, what it means to develop in a sustainable way. And you might have actually already spotted some things looking last week that kind of indicate that people are considering how they are being sustainable. So, for example, things like solar panels on roofs of buildings, homes or commercial buildings, you might have spotted those. Or you might see people having lots of different bins, coloured bins. I know that I have four different coloured bins here at my house so that you can recycle. You've got general waste, you've got food, you've got bottles and glass, you've got paper. So let's just jump back into Google Earth, where I was having a look around, which was around the school that I work in Crumpsall, to see if we can spot any of those features. Let's have a look. Here is my school in Crumpsall. Here it is here. And let's just have a bit of a wander around this local area to see if we can spot any of these features. What can I see? Well, I certainly can see, I think, the bins. Is this a house here? Look, they've got all their different coloured bins out. I wonder if their colour coding system's the same as mine, with the blue being the paper. I think that's a very faded black there. What else can we see if we go for a wander down this way? Can we see any solar panels on houses? Let's have a look. Oh yes, look, there we go. Here's a house with solar panels on as well. They're obviously doing some building work here, but that's another example of one of our sustainable features. So there's a couple of the different ones that I can see there. Let's see if I can see any more. It's really interesting using Google Earth to look around your local area. There we go. I think they are more solar panels on this house there. They're using the energy from the sun to generate some electricity. So let's jump back. Where am I? There I am. So as I said, today we're going to talk more about this idea of sustainability. And to start with, we're going to do an odd one out activity, and I've got that hiding here. There we go. Now I'm not going to give the answer away just yet, but the odd one out activities are nice because they get us thinking. They get us thinking about different pictures and using our brains to think about how we can make connections between two of these items to then indicate which one we think might be the odd one out. So I'm going to give you an example and then I'll pause and give you time to think of some other reasons why one of these might be the odd one out. So I think here the odd one out is concrete, because straw and cork, which are the other two we've got, they're kind of more natural materials. Straw, you know, I know how that grows in fields, and cork is that comes from the bark of particular trees, I believe. Although, as I'm saying that, I'm not 100% sure, so I will have to double check that. That's something I will go and double check. But there we go. That's one reason I think that the concrete could be the odd one out. Or maybe perhaps the straw is the odd one out here, because the cork and the concrete are kind of formed into quite kind of specific 3D shapes. We've got like a cylinder, although it does have a slight cone to it for the cork, and the concrete is a cuboid. So that's another reason I can think of to make one of them the odd one out. But I'll pause now for a minute, and I'll give you the chance to get your creative thinking hats on and to come up with reasons why one of these is the odd one out, and because it's different to the other two. And then I'll tell you what the real reason is, which one's the odd one out, and why we've included it. Okay, so I hope you've had a chance to get your creative thinking going, and you've come up with different reasons to make one of these the odd one out. Let me tell you why we've actually included these. The odd one out here really is the concrete, because the other two materials are what we would consider to be more carbon neutral, which is when a material in its development, in its growth of something like the straw, it takes in as much carbon dioxide from the air around us as when it's being used as the material. So what that means is we want to minimize the amount of carbon dioxide that's going into the atmosphere, because that has a knock-on impact on things like climate change. So using materials, more natural materials, they actually help to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere as they are being grown and processed. So that overall, they're not contributing to an increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, whereas concrete does. The actual process of creating concrete puts carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, so it is not carbon neutral. Now, why is this important? Well, we have a growing population. We have more and more people on the earth, as this video that I'm about to show you is going to illustrate. And we need to think about our individual impact on the environment. So if we're building materials from materials that aren't carbon neutral to house this increasing number of people, that is going to further add to climate change. So it's really important that we think about ours and our community and our nation's populations. What are the collective impact of all those people on climate change? Now, this little video I'm going to show you, fantastic little video this, it illustrates how quickly the world's population is now growing in recent times. So I'll share this with you, and it shows how there's been an explosion. I can use that word to describe the increase in population. Here we go.
An environment is a system of living things. The Earth is our environment. The capacity of our environment to provide space, to produce food, and to supply energy are all limited. Humans thrive on less than 17% of the Earth's surface, and only about 4% will grow crops. We depend on these limited resources for our survival, yet we are increasing our population as if they were infinite. This fact is at the core of our environmental problems. On this map, we'll show population growth from the year 1 CE to the present, and project our growth into the year 2050. Population concentrations will be indicated by dots, each of which will represent 1 million people. In areas where people are spread out and don't live in concentrations of 1 million, dots are placed in the middle of their approximate range. Historical references will be provided by images and text at the bottom of the screen.
Wow. Now that, I think, is a fascinating illustration to watch of how the population has exploded in recent years. And if you could hear a baby crying in the background of that as well, that's just one more member of the world's population, which is my daughter, added to that. And it shows as well how going forward to 2050, that this accelerating rate of expansion of the population is set to just get quicker and quicker. Now, we're humans, the number of humans on the planet is increasing very rapidly, but the resources available are not, which is why it's one of the reasons why it's so important that we think about how we're developing in a sustainable manner. And to hear more about what that means, I'm really excited to say that I caught up with Rob Webster from Civic Engineers earlier today, who is an expert in all things sustainable development. So let's go now to watch that conversation that I had with Rob, and I asked him a little bit more about actually what sustainable development is. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us about your role as an engineer and Civic Engineers. So just to get us started, because today's lesson we're talking about sustainability, and we'll hear a bit more about that in a minute and how we build that into engineering projects. But can you just tell us a bit more about yourself and your role in Civic Engineers? Over to you. Introduce yourself.
Of course, yeah. So I'm Rob Webster. I'm a senior civil engineer at a consultancy called Civic Engineers. So my role is I lead a team of engineers who kind of create designs, reports and specifications for schemes that we're involved in. So we've got loads and loads of different schemes, but for example, we get involved in parks, in housing developments, and like huge commercial buildings. Even some actual the huge skyscrapers that are being built in Manchester at the moment.
Okay, so a real range of things then, you know, from parks to high rise, etc.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. And I really find that variety in what we do actually makes our day job very interesting. And each different site is very different. It comes up with different challenges for each area. But I like a good problem to get my teeth stuck into and actually create like a design I'm proud of.
Cool. So yeah, and I wonder whether that kind of feeds into a little bit the next question I was going to ask, which is you talking about enjoying getting your teeth into a good problem. What made you want to become an engineer? You know, is it something you always wanted to do, or people around you thought, I bet he's going to be an engineer? What's your route in?
So I think at school I generally didn't really enjoy English, but I absolutely loved maths and science. I think I enjoyed it because I was fortunately quite good at it. But I think the main reason I became an engineer was that I really enjoy problem solving, and the way I think is quite logical. So, and that's a huge part of what engineers do on a day-to-day basis, is to solve problems. And I think a good thing I really enjoy about engineering is that we're helping to shape the built environment around us. So there's so much that we all take for granted day in, day out. If you just look outside of our window, or even within the building that we're sat in at the moment, because engineering shapes the roads, the buildings, the railways, how we get our energy, and every single one of those things has been thought of by someone at one point and strategically planned to make sure that it can be done in a way that's sustainable and safe for society. And I guess I just wanted to have some part in that huge kind of input into the world that we're building, really.
Yeah, fantastic. And I definitely share with you that enjoyment of problem solving. I know when I'm sort of in education and teacher now, but previously in engineering, I was in aerospace engineering, so I tell everyone all the time how much I love aeroplanes. But you know, just the satisfaction that you get from being presented with a problem, going through that kind of creative process of possible ideas, and then you were, the way you were describing it, then you were talking about so many of these engineering habits of mind. you know, through to kind of logical thinking, systems thinking, breaking it down to see how we can actually get to a solution. And it really is very satisfying when you put something together, as long as it works.
Definitely, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the most satisfying things you can ever have as an engineer is that you take an awful lot of time and effort to create these designs and all the various forms and regulations you need to go to create it. That actually it gets built, and you can actually visit it, and you can take your friends and family to it, and you can actually say, you know, I helped contribute to this, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a hugely rewarding part of my job.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Now, you did mention as well, and it's come up a couple of times, obviously, the idea of sustainability. I was having a look at, you know, Civic Engineers, that the firm that you work for, you know, national organisation tackling all of these challenges, and it's got a lovely statement on your website which says that you aim to create inspirational structures and places that have a positive impact on the environment. And obviously our impact on environment, climate change, etc. is a very important subject at the moment. So I just wanted to know a little bit about, how do you actually achieve this? You know, what is it, what do you do to have this positive impact on the environment with your designs?
So I think that there's kind of two parts to this. There's having a positive impact on people, and I think to do that we need to really make sure that we design with emotion, and we think about how a place functions, but equally how it also looks and feels. So we need to make sure that we think about the people and the end user who's going to be using whatever design that we've created, and make sure that they're actually going to enjoy being there, and actually, you know, want to spend time wherever we're involved in. But then there's equally the other part of it, and as you say, John, just think about the overall sustainability. So not just thinking about humans, we also need to think about plants and animals too. Mm-hmm. So I think overall we need to make sure that in every design we're putting sustainability right at the forefront of it. So sustainability, that is recycling, reusing and reducing as much as possible, so we're not harming the planet. I think in terms of how we kind of achieve this, we really try and make sure that we reduce the amount of carbon in our design. Mm-hmm. So you might hear this mentioned an awful lot, quite a bit in the local kind of news at the moment. But effectively, carbon just means less carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is a key greenhouse gas which drives a lot of climate change. And again, you see a lot about climate change in the news at the moment, but we need to do everything that we can, and everybody has got a moral obligation to think about climate change, just to make sure that what we're doing today doesn't impact on future generations. So we can reduce carbon within our designs by reducing the amount of concrete, trying to reduce the actual, promote the use of sustainable products such as lots of wood in our designs, and just thinking about how we can get materials to the site as well. So if you have a solution where you've got a lot of having to raise levels and do lots of excavations with diggers, etc., you know, it takes a lot of energy to get all that equipment to the sites, and it also takes a lot of equipment to be moving that material around. So if we can try and promote using the existing terrain as it is, then of course that's only going to make things better in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, it's all so important, as you say. A couple of phrases that you use then, which I really like, is the idea of designing with emotion. You know, that's a wonderful idea, and I totally agree with you. You know, it's all of our moral obligation at this point in time to start trying to tackle the issue of climate change. So it's amazing to hear you verbalise, you know, the thought process that you as engineers at Civic Engineers go through in thinking about what the impact is of your projects. Because as you say, it's not just the actual finished project itself, it's the construction, it's getting the kit in, it's the impact of that movement. But I suppose that going back to your love of problem solving, that just makes it an even more complex and enjoyable problem to solve, does it?
Definitely, yeah. It really is. And with every design, we need to make sure that we've thought about how it can be built, but not also how it can be built, but how long that design will last for in its place. But equally as well, we need to think about how whatever we've designed can be maintained as well. Because at the end of the day, all of these really impressive kind of structures and different designs that we build, we need to make sure that we keep them available for lots of years, and we need to make sure we maintain them to make sure that they last a long time. So we really do need to think about a whole life cycle of a project in each and every design that we do.
So coming on to when we're thinking about designs, obviously part of this project is that pupils are going to be considering their own sustainable site. If I was to say to you, what are the 3 key features that you would like to see incorporated in it to enhance, or rather reduce, the negative impact and make these sites more sustainable, what would they be from you?
So I think because travel is such a big thing, we really need to reduce the amount that we travel, and lots of kind of car trips and things like that. And I mean, if we think about how often, and I'm just as guilty as everyone else, that we jump in the car to pop to the local shop and the like. And if I really do think that is the classic design kind of mantra, that if you build it, people will use it. So I think that promotion of sustainable travel, so that is kind of cycling, walking, and that really using public transport as well. That means that we're kinder to our planet. We're not pumping out as many exhaust fumes from our vehicles, but equally make sure that we can put our features close to, also our development sites, close to local features, so then people can just live within their means, within, say, like a 20-minute kind of walking kind of or cycling radius. And that means that people don't have to drive loads of places and drive to shops and drive to the train station, things like that. So I think definitely a promotion of sustainable travel within the development. I think a really kind of good thing as well for the development would be to think about energy. So solar panels, for example, on the buildings would be a fantastic opportunity, just to rather than having to get energy and electricity off the kind of national grid, you can have a completely wholly sustainable development where it generates its own electricity, and then it can use it in that way. And at the end of the day, the sun is an absolute ultimate sustainable energy provider. And I think that would be a huge kind of option I'd include within design. So solar panels within the buildings. And I think another big feature for me would be, I think because I'm a huge lover of water and what we call like blue infrastructure, that would be inclusion of a pond within the scheme, because ponds then promotes the biodiversity for the plants and animals, and it also allows the opportunity for the rainwater to be collected on the site, and that rainwater can be reused for within that development itself to, let's say, flush the toilets or water some of the plants in the people's kind of gardens. So we can harvest that rainwater, but equally we can create a nice feature that is good for the plants, good for the animals, and also good for people as well. And that'll to have those features is a huge promotion of mental health and well-being within the community as well, which is, again, that's going back to the whole thing about having a focus on the people using the site as well.
Yeah, it sounds like ponds are win-win-win-win, aren't they, really? Loads of factors there which benefit from having a pond. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your 3 kind of top tips on sustainable features. So everyone watching there got some fantastic advice. And just before I say cheerio to Rob, just to remind everyone as well that you've actually got some other videos that you've created with lots more information about sustainable development. Is that right, on the GMEC website?
Yes, absolutely. So in those videos, I talk a bit about what sustainability means to me. And equally, just a bit of a rundown, some tips and tricks for the design competition about what I would personally include. Definitely one thing that's really important is to make sure that you give your village a funny name. That's very important.
Excellent, yeah. Super. Well, thanks again for taking the time out to talk to me about sustainable development. I will hopefully speak to you again soon in the future and share with you what is happening in GMEC and all the people's ideas as they come in.
Fantastic. That sounds brilliant to me. Thank you, John.
Cheers, Rob. Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, wow. I learned so much talking to Rob in that interview. And I love that phrase, you know, designing with emotion in mind as well. Thinking about how people want to use spaces. That's so important, I think, for our well-being, which will come on as well, which we'll come on to in the next session. So, sustainability, what can we actually do about it? Well, in the GMEC project that you're doing, we want you to be thinking about how the development, the space that you're designing is sustainable. So first of all, we want you to be thinking about perhaps choosing sustainable materials or using renewable energy sources, or how you might be going about recycling waste that's generated through the community space that you're thinking about. And in terms of the task that we've got for you today, we've got a couple of different options. So option one is the one that I'm going to show you here, where we're going to look at a basic design shape of a house and think about what sustainable features that we could add to it to make it more sustainable. And then option two, in your packs there are some pictures of some houses. I've got a printout, sorry, not houses, developments. I've got a printout of them here. You'll find this in your packs. So we've got Angel Square in Manchester, the Scottish Parliament Building, or Cityscape House in London. And we want you to research what is it about those developments which enable them to be more sustainable. So that's option two. But let me give you an example of what option one is. I've got a picture, hopefully it is here, of basic outline of a house. And we want you to add to this some features of that make it more sustainable. So, for example, I'm just going to do a couple here just to demonstrate to you what we want you to do. But oh, there we go. That's an ideal word to use because this is a water butt. So, for example, I might include a water butt on this that could be used to collect rainwater that runs off of the top of the roof. Then that water could be used for perhaps watering the plants in the garden. So let's see if I can actually, this is going to be tricky doing this as I talk, but let's see if we can actually draw on a kind of downpipe here, something like that, and we can fill that in. There we go, to indicate we've got a downpipe to collect water running off the roof. I've also got here a picture of some solar panels, so I'm going to put some solar panels on the roof here, and I'm going to duplicate those because they tend to have to cover the roof. Interesting as well, you might have noticed that on, I think it was on the house we looked at on the map, and you often get this, that houses, the roofs don't have solar panels on every side, and I wonder why that is. Perhaps that's something you could be thinking about. Maybe it depends on which direction the house points, or which direction the sides of the roof point, and think about maybe the positioning of the sun. So there we go. I've just done that really quickly to give you an example of the activity, your first activity, or first option for the first activity, which is to add the sustainable features to the drawing of the house. And then we also have today for you, for each of the GMEC lessons, there is also a maths-based activity as well. And today's maths-based activity is called Mini-Me. And this is all about giving you an idea of scale. and an introduction to the idea that when designers are creating designs for buildings, what they do is they work at scale. So that means taking something full size and creating a smaller drawing of it where everything remains in proportion. And this is a nice activity, this one, in that to introduce you to the idea of creating scale drawings, we're going to get you to make a mini you, or me to make a mini me. So to do this, you need to do two things. First of all, well, actually you need to do four things, but I'll summarize them in two steps. First of all, you have to measure how tall you are, and then secondly, you have to create a scale drawing of yourself. So the full steps are on here. What I'm going to do is just do that. So hopefully you can see my paper there. Yes, I think you can. So the full steps are on here, but step one is you need to get a tape measure, sorry, not a tool measure. A tape measure to measure your height and measure it in centimetres. And I know that in centimetres I am 182 centimetres tall. Okay, then step two is to divide your height by 10, because our scale drawing is going to be at a scale of 10 to 1, so that the full size of your scale would be 10 times greater than your scale drawing. So if I take 182 centimetres and I divide that by 10, I should be able to do this mentally with my place value. I know that that is going to be 18.2 centimetres. So that is going to be the height of my scale of my scaled mini me. And then what I can do is I can take my tape measure, or if you've got another ruler that's more suitable for working on paper, you can use that as well. And I'm going to measure 18 centimetres. Let's check I can actually fit it in here. I just about can, so that you can see. So this is going to be the base of my mini me, and we've got 18.2. I'm sure you can do it much more accurately than I am doing it, but that is the height of my mini me, and then I can start to turn that into me. I need my hair there. But does my height include my hair or not? I think it did, so maybe I should have had my head a little bit bigger there. Anyway, I'm not going to embarrass myself anymore by my poor drawing of me. Or maybe I will do. There we go. Does that look anything like me? Oh, I need glasses, don't I? There we go. So anyway, that is your second activity today. Linking to maths to start to develop your understanding of drawing in scale. So I hope you've enjoyed GMEC Lesson 2 this week. We'll be back again next week where we will be exploring more about well-being and spaces that the spaces and shapes of building, and speaking to more experts about that. And I will see you then. Bye for now.